Review. I'm the Wild Reviewer, and today I'm gonna review.
Hey there, how are ya?
Hello there. My name's the Wild Reviewer, or at least that's what I've been told. And this is a series I used to do called The Wild Review. It was a review series that ran for 6 seasons from 2015 to 2018. Everything since then has either been a mini-series or this in particular series, Rewild. A series I've created that allows me to look back at some old Wild Review episodes to see if what I talked about still holds up today. Because I have changing opinions. I am a growing boy, and some things I've said about TV shows or movies or just other various topics may have changed within the last couple of years, and that's what I'm setting out to do here. I'm gonna look back at various different Wild Review episodes to see if what I said is something I can still agree with. Or maybe I'm just making fun of my younger self. That's very possible. So, unless you have something better to do, which part of me highly doubts, seems like you're gonna be stuck with me for the next couple of minutes as we take a trip into the past. This is the Wild Review Rewild. This season has a theme also. We're going on a road trip.
Wild like wild like.
Hello, welcome to the Wild Review. I'm the Wild Reviewer, and welcome back to another episode of Rewild, a series where I take a look at some old Wild Review episodes to see if they still hold up today. I took a detour, everybody. Today I found myself in the woods. It's quite scary here. And you know what? Being that we're coming up to the most scariest time of the year, I should be very mindful of any scary things that try to come up and bite me. Like, what's that? Oh! Oh. It's just, dinosaur. Sure, it's a dinosaur. Doesn't make any sense. Hey, let's talk about Over the Garden Wall, shall we? We're coming up to the 10th anniversary of a little mini-series that aired on Cartoon Network in 2014 called Over the Garden Wall. It was a 10-episode mini-series. I think they premiered it all within a week, and typically when they air an entire series, even though I know this is a mini-series, but when they air everything all at once on a live network, I tend to scoff at that. Is that the right word, scoff? I just think it's cheap. I mentioned a show called Elliot from Earth a few episodes ago, and they premiered every episode within a month, and that to me feels cheap. People worked very hard making this certain show, and for a network to just throw the episodes out all at once and not replay them ever again, that kind of sucks. Over the Garden Wall was one of the first times I've ever seen that happen on Cartoon Network. I'm sure other shows have fallen victim to that. I once heard that they did that with Chowder and Flapjack when they were ending those shows. Eventually Adventure Time and Steven Universe would fall into that. Maybe not Steven Universe. Steven Universe did get a little more marketing, but I just find it weird when networks like Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon do that, where they just kind of throw the episodes out all at once, and Over the Garden Wall was one of those shows that did that. However, it was a little different, and over the years, a lot of people who watched Over the Garden Wall at some point realized maybe it was purposely made out to be that way, to where it would air all at once and not necessarily never be seen again, but just kind of air and then go away for a little bit and then come back. Was that a bad introduction? Did I not introduce Over the Garden Wall right? This 10-episode miniseries was a seasonal show. A very rare thing that we get on television. It happens occasionally, but Over the Garden Wall was very autumn-like, and it would make 100% sense for this show to air around autumn. It aired in 2014, and to my knowledge, it didn't air again the rest of that year. I could be 100% wrong, but I didn't watch the full thing in 2014. I didn't see Over the Garden Wall until a year later when they played it again on Cartoon Network around the Halloween season, and I fell in love with it. I thought it was really cute. I felt like that I didn't give it a fair chance, and it did me justice to show how much I messed up in not seeing the show the first time it aired on television by quickly making a wild review video, a very unscheduled wild review episode, and then I posted it a day later. It was the fastest episode I think I had ever put together within the span of filming it and editing it and uploading it. I liked the show. I thought it was very cute, and I still think it was very cute. I saw it in 2015, like said, and then for a long time I didn't see it because I don't think they played it on television as much. They may have played it in 2016, but I do know for a while they didn't play it. However, they did play it last Halloween season, which was really cool, so I wasn't able to check it out when it was airing, but I did record it, and I was able to watch it with the days coming up to Halloween that year, which was cool. Was it Halloween? It may have been November. No, it aired all on Halloween. That's what it did. It aired all on Halloween, and then I watched it after Halloween. That's right. Because that's how it works. That's fine, because Over the Garden Wall can be seen as both a Halloween special, but also an autumn special. It's just bursting with autumn colors. So I thought, especially since I saw it last Halloween, it's still kind of fresh in my mind, because last Halloween feels like just a few months ago to me. I thought it'd be pretty neat to relook at the episode I did on Over the Garden Wall, see if my thoughts still hold up from the first time I saw it to the most recent time that I saw it, and we'll just have a conversation about it. I want to talk about this. That's right. Maybe it'll get my mind off of being trapped in the woods myself. Without any further delay, let's jump back in time and check out what I had to say about Over the Garden Wall. That wasn't a dinosaur. I'm sorry, Patrick McHale. I owe you an apology. I owe your team an apology. I owe Cartoon Network an apology. I owe everybody a fan of what I'm about to talk about. I give you all an apology. I'm sorry I didn't give your show a chance last year. If I had opened my eyes when it had aired a year ago from today, maybe I would have felt what I felt last week. Because it opened my eyes to realize I can't judge a book by its cover. Yeah, at the time I felt like a jerk. It's not a big deal, like it really wasn't, but I just wasn't interested the first time that I gave Over the Garden Wall a little looky. I saw the first 5 minutes of it when it first premiered, and I was like, I don't know if I want to see this. And so I just didn't watch it. And then I was talking about it with a group of friends at lunch, and one of my friends just couldn't stop bragging about the show. And somewhere within that conversation, I had mentioned that I had only seen the first 5 minutes of the first episode and that I wasn't interested. And he didn't get mad. He was just very shocked, especially because he knows I liked watching cartoons. So he was like, I gotta give this a try. Watch it and then come back to me and we will talk about it. So I was like, alright, I'll give it a watch. And he convinced me on why I should watch it. And again, in 2015, they were showing it again. So I gave it a watch. And he was right. He praised the music, he praised the animation, the storytelling, even though it was going to get a little weird throughout the series, but everything about it that he praised, I completely understand why. Was that a car horn? In the woods? Obviously, I did talk with him about it soon after I saw everything, and I gave him an apology. I was exactly what I was doing here. I was like, I'm sorry, I misjudged it. The whole thing. I judged the show like I judged a book by its cover. I shouldn't have done that. And as I was talking to him, the Animal School episode was playing in my head, which was a sign to me that I was doing the right thing. Nah, but it was a cute show. I feel like I misjudged it a bit. And I think that was the last show I ever really judged based on the first 5 minutes or the trailers. I did mention that this episode wasn't planned. This was one of the very first episodes, and kind of one of the very few episodes where I just took out the camera and just started talking about something I recently just watched. And I didn't have it scheduled as one of the things I wanted to talk about in the show. You gotta remember this was season 2 of the Wild Review, so those early episodes I did have a list of things I wanted to talk about, and I technically had another list as we went on with the series, because I did keep my ideas together, for what I would talk about. But this was one of the first times I did it where it wasn't scheduled. I think the other one was when I talked about the Nicktoons movie, and that was obviously, if you were to watch the episode, I make it clear that this is a last-minute addition to the series that I was doing because I had recently just discovered and heard the news about the movie. But this is one of those times where it wasn't planned that I was going to talk about it. And it's also one of the first genuine reviews I've done on the Wild Review. I mean, everything that I've talked about prior and even afterwards, before I did the transition of not making it a show as much anymore, what I was saying was genuine. Like, you have Gravity Falls' season finale. I meant every word I said about that. You know, if I wasn't aiming as much for a joke when I was talking about something, then most of the time it was genuine what I was saying. I would just throw in these ridiculous jokes to try to make it funny. But this was one of the first times where I was just kind of speaking off of my mind. I had a pad, but it wasn't on camera like it usually would be. It was actually off to the side. And I was just talking about things I really enjoyed. And I felt bad including any jokes within this review because it wasn't a bad thing. I mean, it's interesting. I tended to be a bit nicer and genuine to those things on the Wild Review that I would talk about that I found good in comparison to things I thought were really bad. I felt that if it was a really bad thing, I can make jokes about it all I want and do the Wild Review show shtick. But yeah, that was, everything was genuine in this. I wasn't trying to be funny or try to crack jokes. I was being serious about what I was talking about, which is a rarity in those early seasons of Wild Review history. This past October was the first of a lot of things for me that I didn't imagine me watching or doing back in January. It was the first time I actually physically sat down and watched the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown special. It was the first time I didn't really do anything on Halloween besides stay at home and watch a whole bunch of Halloween reruns and give out candy to kids. It was the first time I was in my costume only for a few seconds and didn't wear it around as like I wanted to. And It was the first time I didn't see the Fairly Odd Parents Halloween special. Halloween gets different as you get older, kid. It's not going to be the same for everybody. But for me, I stopped trick-or-treating in 2014. So I was a freshman in high school at that point. And it wasn't even like a full-on trick-or-treating adventure. I didn't go around my entire neighborhood. I literally went up the block and then back home. It was a 5-minute thing, and I did that because I honestly felt like I had outgrown trick-or-treating, which was a first for me, because I never think I outgrow anything. I guess also I was intimidated by the scary teenagers down the block playing with shaving cream. Did anybody else have that happen? That happened a lot when I was growing up. I never did it, but there would just be shaving cream everywhere. If it happens to you, let me know. We could talk about it maybe. Nowadays, I spent Halloween in my costume, watching Halloween specials and entertaining the kids that come to my door. I willingly give the candy out to the kids. I dress up in my costume and I open the door. I'm like one of those characters on a Disney Channel original movie that's specifically themed to a Halloween story, and the parents open the door and they're in costume, and I don't talk to anybody though. I just give out the candy, but I don't know, I've come to enjoy that. I also scare some people sometimes, unintentionally. I had no plans on watching Over the Garden Wall, like I said in the beginning. When I first saw the trailers last year, when it premiered exactly a year ago for the 5 nights it was on, I looked at it and I was like, I don't know about it. And then when it was coming up again, I saw trailers for it again because it was replaying on Halloween and the week of Halloween. And then my friend, who will stay nameless, but he probably knows who he is if he watches this, my friend came over to me and a few of other my friends at lunch, and he was talking about it, and what he was telling me was interesting about it, and so unfortunately I couldn't find it on Netflix, but I could have sworn I saw it on Netflix, and I guess Netflix took it down, because Netflix has to be that way. They put something up, and then when I want to watch something, it takes it down, so thanks. You gonna take down Lab Rats next? Just wait a few more years, buddy. It gets worse. For those who don't know what Over the Garden Wall is, and if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, last year, obviously, Cartoon Network put out a miniseries, and it's a miniseries, a 10-part miniseries, shrunken into, 10-minute episodes, like a normal cartoon on Cartoon Network. And it tells the story of these 2 kids named Wirt and Greg, and they get lost in the woods after... it's actually not revealed how they got in the woods until episode 9, which is the episode right before the end of the series. But yeah, it's not until episode 9 where we find everything out that Greg and Wirt were, they were running from, I think, the cops. I'm pretty sure it was. It was Halloween night, and I know there was a little tape recording thing. There was some kind of record music thing Wirt made for his love interest, who I can't remember the name, but the two then follow those kind of people into they follow a whole bunch of people into the graveyard where they get caught by the cops, and they go running and they jump over a wall and they get lost in the woods. And throughout the whole series, they try to find their way out of the woods. Though they keep kind of failing. In the first episode, they run into some guy. I think he's the lantern guy. They run into a woodsman who's carrying a lantern and stuff. This is something that I didn't know the first time watching this, and it's interesting when I go back to things that I had seen in the past. I start to point out certain people that I recognize, and I didn't realize that the lantern guy was voiced by Christopher Lloyd. I don't know why I didn't put that together as a kid. I'd seen Back to the Future. I knew who Christopher Lloyd was. How I didn't even realize that was his voice? I must have been a stupid kid. So the first episode, they run into a woodsman who tells them, who warns them about a beast. And I'm not 100%, I didn't follow up 100% on what the beast's plan was. I think he turns people into trees and stuff. But that's the whole arc throughout Over the Garden Wall. There's just this beast that's after the 2 kids. And there's also a blue jay named Beatrice, who is later revealed to actually be a girl. And that's kind of why she speaks throughout the series. She was a human girl, and I guess her family and her angered a witch, and they all were turned into blue jays. That's another plot I didn't fully understand. But I do know they were turned into blue jays by a witch, I think. You didn't pay much attention then. That's exactly what happened. They turned into birds. That's what happens. But yeah, throughout the whole series, through these 10 episodes, Wirt, Greg, Greg's frog, a rock that they hold on to, and Beatrice, they all try to find their way out. They run into some... Each one is different. Each part is different, but some characters keep showing up. Like the woodsman shows up in about, I I want to say half of all of the episodes. And the Beast is like the main antagonist of it. But in the second episode, they go into like a field, like a village populated by skeletons who wear pumpkins as like flesh. And then there's like a ship with frogs, and there's a school of animals. And the one thing I remembered my friend telling me about Over the Garden Wall is that when you keep watching it, it's just gonna get weirder. Which it does. Like, the first episode is calm, the second episode is calm, third episode you start getting a little weird, and it isn't until you're in the halfway point where it's like, alright, this is a little freaky now, especially if you get up to episode 6, I believe it is. So I guess if you go deeper into a forest, the more scarier it'll be for you, especially if you're doing it at night. And I guess in a way that relates to what's happening in Over the Garden Wall, or I should say what happens in Over the Garden Wall relates to as if you were going deeper into a forest, which is exactly what Greg and Ward are doing. They are trying to find a way out, and they just keep going deeper and deeper, and they find themselves in quite an interesting adventure. Yes, they get sidetracked. They see a village filled with pumpkin people, and they come across an animal school, and they're on a boat and singing about potatoes and molasses. Yeah, that all happens. But when you get more into the series, it does start to get a little creepier, and things start to unravel, and in a sense, I'm looking at it now as just getting further and further into the forest where things are getting even scarier, and you can't find your way out, and you eventually come out at some point and you cry your eyes out because you don't know what the hell happened. So that's what I think about. I think Over the Garden Wall is really awesome. Someone tells me they should do like a sequel, but I don't think they should. For some reason I have that feeling that there's going to be a sequel because of the success it did. Because this really did a success, Over the Garden Wall. No, doesn't need a sequel. We don't need a sequel to this. I mean, if they made one, what am I going to do? Yell about it? Maybe. I don't think it needs a sequel. I think the story is perfect the way it is. We got to stop giving shows reboots and sequel series. Why don't we just create some new things? And Over the Garden Wall is an example of that. There has been nothing like Over the Garden Wall before it premiered. And it was a hit. People love it. People are drawing things about it. I'm sure there are fan stories out there somewhere. But there is a fan base of this little miniseries, and I think people need to really start looking at shows like Over the Garden Wall to see that sometimes original ideas work. In fact, Cartoon Network's saying that it's an autumn classic, which it kind of is. It's like a mixture of like, it's like the perfect thing to watch around this time of year where it's fall, and also like Halloween, because it is creepy to be a Halloween special, but it's cute to be a fall special. It does have a very fall and autumn feel to it. Like I stated before, this is a perfect little mini-series to watch around the Halloween season, or even the week after Halloween. Especially since the series technically takes place after Halloween. And I honestly like that. There's an episode, specifically episode 9, where we look into the lives of Greg and Wart before the events of episode 1. And that episode also sticks into my mind. Just the way that those shots look itself. That gives off such a fantastic feeling of autumn, and how areas look around the Halloween season, and even at the end we get a little fall-like feel to how everything is, because it's after Halloween but it's right before the Christmas season, which has a completely different look, and I like that. I just really like how this series looks and the feel to it. It's great. At the moment, I have no idea if there are any plans for Over the Garden Wall to premiere on TV this Halloween season, which I think it should, because in recent news, or at least recent news for me, they are taking Over the Garden Wall off of Max. Don't know whose idea that was, especially since we are, at this point, 2 months away from Halloween, so Cool. Because of that, I am hoping that they take all of the Christmas specials off by September. I think that'll do the streaming service justice. But that's really it on what I think of Over the Garden Wall. I think it's really awesome. I'm sorry I missed it last year, and I'm sorry I judged it. I don't know why I didn't mention this, but for the longest time, I was under the impression the series was all a dream at the end because we see that the characters wake up in a hospital, and they show that they're found in the water. So they are taken out of the water, brought to the hospital, and I thought this connected to episode 1 when they jumped over the garden wall. He said it! So I thought that the whole thing was a dream. But after watching it again last year, and especially after having that conversation with my friend when I'd first seen the show, he told me that it wasn't a dream. I kind of saw that it wasn't a dream. Like, I put it together like, oh, maybe this actually was something that happened that they witnessed. Maybe somebody was actually turned into a bird. Now sitting here, like, I'm still thinking about it, whether or not it was a dream. And I looked it up on Google to confirm, like, you know, it was the whole series just a dream. I don't care if it was. I mean, I personally think that's the most cliche way of ending a story. But for this story, it, oddly enough, doesn't bother me. But everywhere I'm looking, it's not confirming it was a dream, and that both Greg and Wart remember everything that happened. So it's very possible that the series did happen in real life to them. And I just probably didn't pay attention very well. But I still liked it. If Over the Garden Wall is on television this year, would I see it again? Maybe, if I have time for it. Because I will be going back to school, so that's going to take up a bit of my time. However, if you haven't seen it and you get a chance to check it out, then definitely watch it if it's on TV, if it's on demand. I can't even recommend looking it up on a streaming site. Unless Hulu has it. Hulu seems to, oddly enough, have some Cartoon Network stuff. Even though Hulu is technically a Disney property now. Right? It's weird that they have Cartoon Network shows on there. I think they even have some Nickelodeon stuff. But if you have the chance to check out Over the Garden Wall, I would highly recommend it. One more thing I want to bring up that I didn't bring up in the episode, but there was another Cartoon Network show on at the time called Clarence. And just naming that specific show, some of you who are familiar with Over the Garden Wall may know where I'm going with this. There's a theory that the two worlds of Clarence and Over the Garden Wall are connected, that they aren't two separate universes, they are the exact same universes. And there are two theories that prove this point, one of them being at the very end of Over the Garden Wall. We get a shot of the town that Greg and Wart live in, and it's an exact copy of the town layout in Clarence. And then there's an episode of Clarence called Little Buddy, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the events of Over the Garden Wall, but rather it focuses on Clarence's obsession with a doll that he likes, that he brings to school, and it gets him in trouble. And one night he goes into the park and he's digging a hole, he's going to throw his little buddy in there, but in the very background where you see the forest, you also see silhouettes of Greg and Wart. Now, the art people on Over the Garden Wall have confirmed that they did use the layout of the town in Clarence because they needed a layout of a town, and they were working with the people that also worked on Clarence, or they were next to the people working on Clarence, so they borrowed that, which is cool. It's nice that they gave that away, but at least at this point in filming, and I didn't double check this, but apparently there was no confirmation as to if the silhouettes in Clarence were Greg and Wart, even though it seems very likely that it is. If there is anything, I'll put it right here, but at the moment I don't have any confirmation that these two shows are really connected. It's just a little theory, and it's fun to think about sometimes. Especially since one of the characters turned into a bird in the Clarence universe. That's a little interesting. Well, that's all I have to say about that. My opinions on Over the Garden Wall have not changed at all. I still think it's a really good mini-series, and you should definitely check it out if you get the chance. If you'd like to check out what I said about the show, you want to see this video in full, the link for that will be in the description below, as well as the previous 2 playlists for the previous 2 seasons of Rewild, if you're interested in checking out some more. I got a few episodes that came out for this season of Rewild, so you can check those episodes out to get a sense of what I'm doing this season. I'm going on adventures, as you can see, and by the looks of this forest, I don't know if I want to stay here anymore, so I'm going to leave. So that's it for today's episode. Thanks for watching. If you like what you see here, give me a like, do whatever you want. Leave me some comments, what you thought about this episode. What did you think of what I had to say about Over the Garden Wall? What are your thoughts on the show if you saw it, and are you interested? That's it from me, and I will see you next week where I do the exact same thing. Thanks for watching The Wild Review on The Wild Reviewer, and you just saw me review a thing. Zoinks.
Wild like wild.